Hi guys, I'm Jen from RecMed and welcome to our first video series of Own the Shift, where our goal is to provide you with practical tips, strategies, and tools to help strengthen your mindset so you can stop working your 12-hour shifts and actually own your shift. No matter where you are in your healthcare journey, whether that's in the classroom, maybe you just started clinicals, or maybe you've been in healthcare for over a decade like myself. I encourage you to listen to this on your way to work, maybe during your lunch break, or even after your shift. That way you can help your brain organize the difficulties you may have seen in the last 12 hours. So in today's first video, I want to talk to you guys about not just why I cannot stand when nurses put down the nursing profession, but how our expectations in life can mold our outlooks to every single situation we're in, and the reality of why our shifts are so difficult and what you can do to help your frustration. So let's get into this. First things first, I feel like I just need to throw the whole disclaimer out there that you do not have to do whatever it is that I say. It's more of, this is what has helped me over the 14 years of being in the ER, multiple units, worked at over, I think, 14 or 13 different facilities right now, was a travel nurse 7 to 8 years. But this is truly what works for me and why I cannot say that I am burnout. I am still in the hospital system as I own and operate RecMed. And the second disclaimer is, before y'all come at me, you will never hear an argument from me that there are places out there that are extremely short-staffed, most places, are underpaid, and we are finally having these conversations to really make some great administrative change. So I am not overlooking the variables that are out there, but what doesn't help is when we're on social media and we're looking at these memes and jokes and just about how truly negative healthcare is. The problem I see with that is because we're discouraging our future of nursing and the people that are in it now to almost have them wonder what they're going into and completely discouraging them from even coming into the profession. So that is where my problem is, because to me, nursing and a job in healthcare, because I've had other roles than nursing, is the best professions on earth because of not just what you get from having that piece of paper, but what it does for your mentality and the future of you. So I like to talk about the 4 elements of a shift and the 4 demands that we have. And once I talk about the 4 demands, then I will talk about what we can do about these demands. So number 1, we have our physical demand. And this means, how much energy are you personally expending in those 12 hours? Are you standing most of the time? Are you not getting those bathroom breaks we all talk about? Are you transporting patients miles across the hospital and you wore the wrong shoes today? Are you sore because you've been working out? Are you spending 4 to maybe 6 hours in one patient's room trying to stabilize them and you haven't been able to leave it? You're asking everyone to help you, and it's just really taking a lot of energy and effort. So our physical demand can be one of the biggest factors for how our shift goes. Number 2, we have our emotional demands. And emotional demands can be a lot different than just seeing something really traumatic come in the door, experiencing patient death. Although those are very important emotional demands, there can be other emotional demands that can truly play an important part. Obviously, one of the biggest is, do you have stuff maybe going on at home? Maybe you got some hormone stuff going on. But you also get a lot of pressure from the patient, and that can also affect your emotions. People that are in pain, the way they're screaming out and crying can make you have that really nervous energy or pressured energy. You might have pressure coming in from the doctor, and no means is that a negative thing. It means a doctor puts an order in and you have pressure that you need to get it done. Maybe there is pressure from lab or pharmacy because you have meds or you have blood that is also timed as well, that's critical to a patient's care. So you can have more emotional needs because maybe your physical demand is getting harder as well, and maybe you're also just hungry, which can play into our emotions, or you haven't slept well. So beyond our physical and emotional demands, number 3, we have our intellectual demand. And basically what that's saying is, how experienced are you? Do not get that confused with how intelligent are you. For me, showing up after 10 years as an ER nurse and 14 years in the ER, I have so much experience under my belt. And it's not every day that I'm faced with newer situations. And so when I do face a new situation, I feel that sense of like, I really need to heed with caution. And so those days are a little limited in the days where I really feel intellectually challenged to heed with caution. Now, I'm constantly critical thinking and I'm constantly, seeing new stuff. But because I've spent that time developing those critical thinking skills, it happens much faster for me in a holistic way. Now, 10 years ago, I was living my daily shifts as fight or flight. I was wanting to be a responsible nurse. I was nervous all the time. I felt like every move I made, I was heeding with caution. And so that can be very intellectually challenging. 4 is the workload. So essentially, how heavy of an assignment do you have? What is your unit like? What is your whole day looking like? Of course, the workload can really ebb and flow throughout the shift depending on your staffing ratios, but it can also be affected by, do you have really good teamwork? Do you have coworkers that you work really well with? Do you have doctors that you know, because that can also be a long time to get to know them and you feel comfortable having the conversations about what's going on with your patient. And so you have all those components. So you have the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, and the workload that comes together. So I wanted so badly to talk about this topic as the first video is because no matter where you are in your nursing journey, whether that is in the class, in the clinical, or you've already been a nurse, the skills that you develop to learn how to deal with the physical, intellectual, emotional, and workload will completely carry over into your personal life. And I can definitely say that it has, and that is also why I feel that I've been able to reach the success I have in my business, but also grow into a whole different person. And I see it with my coworkers. The people that we are pre-nursing school and the people that we become are two different people, which is why I personally would never discourage somebody from getting into a profession like this. So, what can we do about this, and what are those things that these 4 demands teach us? Number 1, with our physical demand, I could sit here and say the very obvious factors. Take care of your body, lift some weights, move your body, do what you can. I had a knee surgery where, actually I've had 2 ACL surgeries, 6 knee surgeries, where I lay there and I couldn't do anything. And I had 3-pound weights as I was laying there, and I played Wii just to get a little bit of a sweat, which you'd be surprised how much you can playing Wii tennis while you're laying down. So those are the very obvious things. Take care of yourself. But beyond that, do not drive into work and try to prep or wish for a very slow night. That is one of the worst things I think that I used to do to myself that I no longer do. I think of it as like if you're driving home from work and you know that there's dishes, laundry, everything's everywhere, and you're like, I just hope that, the people at my household just took care of it, or they did the dishes, or they did whatever. You are having expectations or hoping for something that might not actually be anything that you can control, because maybe they also had a very busy day and they weren't able to help with the household chores. And so when you walk in the door and you see that there's double the laundry or more dishes, you instantly feel so frustrated because you were just hoping you could come home to a house that's totally clean, everything's taken care of. Now, on the reverse end of that, if you're driving home and you have those thoughts come in and you think about how like, okay, what's my game plan? When I get home, I'm going to do laundry first, or I'm going to do X first, and then I can handle this, and have a way that you're going to tackle it. And you walk in the door and everything's done. That is going to be the best feeling on planet Earth when you didn't have an expectation, but something got done. So sometimes the mindset that we face driving into our shift can truly not help us if we don't prep ourselves. So I'm not saying wish for a crazy night, but when you walk in, be prepared that you're probably going to have one, or that you are. I've spent months of my career having every single night, 15, 16 traumas back to back in the middle of a very large city all the time, and didn't get a break. And then finally a couple weeks went by and it was that nice S word, and it was wonderful. But you don't go in with the mindset hoping for something that isn't. When we wish for our situation to be different than it is, it typically only disappoints us. So Driving in can be a very important thing. Just get that mindset right that you're probably going to have a very physical, taxing time, and you're not disappointed when you do, and that way you're very happily surprised whenever you don't. Your emotions truly do reflect how you show up each and every single day. If there are things that you can do, such as making sure you're getting sleep, getting those blackout curtains, minimizing noise, that's going to be a big thing. When we're super tired, we are so much more emotional than we are whenever we've had adequate time to sleep. But it also means genuinely talking to the people that maybe work with you. So if something comes in that's kind of bothering you, it really is effective to talk to someone in that healthcare role. I can remember when I used to work at Children's Hospital, there are a lot of things, the first that I saw. And I think the first emotionally are some of the hardest things that we get through. So in our first year, our first death, our first patient that had really unfortunate situations happen to them, maybe via another family member. Things like that, they will stick with you, but you get better at learning how to talk to people in those moments the more that you're exposed to them. And the blessing it is that you are the person to get to be there whenever they're through that moment is something I think that we really lose sight of. So while someone's going through something so hard, we try to show up as our best selves, but we can't do that if we also are going through some emotional stuff as well. Take your time off. I know some facilities that is also being a struggle with getting your own vacation days, but you need an outside hobby. You need a hobby. You cannot do all the overtime. Do not max yourself out on all the overtime. And you need to take that vacation, or you need to journal, or you need to reach out to that friend. You have to have your own emotions also put in place so that way you can show up for the betterment of yourself as well. As a newer nurse or someone that's been on the job not as long, how do we even build up that intellectual demand? Two things that are extremely helpful is becoming very good at delegation. Delegation is a skill in itself, and part of being a good healthcare worker is learning when to delegate, when to raise that red flag, and knowing that you're either having a really hard physical time or a really hard emotional time, or your workload's really frustrating and you have to delegate. It doesn't mean pass the buck. It doesn't mean to go sit and play on your phone while somebody else does something for you. It's truly what can they do that's going to buy you a couple more minutes of your time. Can they go do that EKG while you go do the blood draw, vice versa? And how can you delegate? When you learn how to delegate efficiently, you will learn how to delegate almost everything in your life. Learning what is priority number 1 versus priority number 5 is a life tool. So that will also carry on. And number 2 is building up that resiliency. It's hard to feel confident of when to speak up, when to advocate for your patient, when to go to call a lab, when to talk to the doctor about stuff. One of the things that's worked efficiently for me is even being 14 years in, there are situations that I face, and especially being a traveler for such a long time, people don't know me as a nurse and doctors don't know me as a nurse and everyone else. And so if I ask a question that seems odd or difficult and I've gotten a very odd answer, so for instance, I had a girl that needed to have pressure taken off of her brain after an accident. So she did have a bolt placed in, and her pressure started going really south. And of course, fluids can typically be an answer, but for me in the emergency department, you prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And I was getting ready thinking I needed some kind of vasopressor. So I went up to the doctor and I said, hey, what kind of vasopressor would you like on board? Because things are getting really soft. And was greeted with a very snarky comment about it, and that, why would we ever need a vasopressor? We'll do fluids before it. And at first, it made me feel a little embarrassed about the situation because I was like, oh my gosh, I am an idiot. Should I not have asked that question? And then at the end of the day, I thought, you know what? That was actually thinking clearly, because if somebody doesn't have pressure to their brain, how are they even going to perfuse anyways? So I went up to that doctor directly in a very nice, pleasant way. And I was like, hey, I just want to learn from an educational standpoint. Was that a silly question to ask you? Because in my brain, the map was getting pretty low, and I was afraid that if we went into dangerous territory, I was really going to need something on standby. And so was that odd to ask that question? And immediately was greeted by, nope, oh no, that it totally makes sense. I was just thinking because X, Y, Z. And then the conversation was fine. So it was taking a moment of making me feel insecure, which still happens to me all the time. And truly just walking out and being like, hey man, if you want to teach me that instead of being snarky. And then now you've developed a relationship at the same time. So your competence is going to help your confidence. So the more that you know and the more time that you put in, it will develop that confidence. So that's a great way for your intellectual demand to kind of just speed along too. What are some ways that can affect our workload to help us for the better? Staffing remains an issue across the board. It is at every hospital I've ever been to. There's been a few where they've had very adequate staff. And honestly, those were sometimes the times where I was like, oh my gosh, everybody does so much. What do I do? And I miss some of the skills of having to play so many roles. And so one of those things is, again, just learning to be efficient, knowing that you cannot be in 25 places at once, and trusting your gut and your intuition. Learning how to delegate and know where your priorities are going to help your workload no matter how stressed out you are. If there is a place that you need to be and that is the first thing you need to do, then that is what you need to go to. And if that means that you cannot pull blood on Nana for another 2 hours, that means you cannot pull blood on Nana for another 2 hours, unfortunately. So don't get caught up in at first being super on the point, clearing your board off so that way you have 0 things on there to do, 0 orders and whatnot. Just get caught up on where do your priorities lie and being comfortable within that. And then that delegation to help your workload as well. It is always great to help out your teammates too and do it with an open arm. So if you get a second, go help a teammate because you know you're going to need it too. And that sounds very much like common sense, but there are people that are true team players, and there are people that will take advantage of not having to do anything, won't help anyone. And there are people that people avoid because sometimes people are asking for so much help all the time that they're not thinking on their own terms. So your workload can really be, it's going to take time over experience, but think of the things that you can control for that day, and whether that is where your delegations are, where your priorities are, and you're constantly utilizing that. And of course, going to your charge and letting them know, because part of being a good nurse is raising the red flag. This also leads me into my final point of why I get so frustrated when people put down the nursing profession, is because when we learn how to deal with these elements, we become some of the strongest people in our personal lives as well. And the same people that have gone through the things that are putting the profession down are now people that have developed all of these skills that I just talked about: critical thinking, delegation, resiliency, determination, personal growth, being self-rewarding profession, financial stability, and financial growth that you can definitely achieve with the nursing profession and healthcare as well. If things don't go according to plan, that's going to happen through many of our jobs throughout our lives. And so one of the biggest things that I just cannot stand is when people are trying to persuade someone to not enter into such a rewarding profession. So please know that it is not anyone's story other than your own. It doesn't matter where anyone else's journey is. Do not compare yourself to them at all. And if you feel that this is a profession you want to get into, I am here to say it will be worth it. It is going to be hard. Nursing is very hard. Healthcare is very hard. But if you even put 2 years, 5 years into the healthcare system, you're going to come out a whole new human. And I'm so grateful for all those years that I put in and I continue to put in. And I'm very grateful that now I get to be one of the people that helps educate our newer generation of nurses, which hopefully we can start also having newer generation of nurses making some pretty great administrative change. But we're not going to fix our problems if we are trying to not persuade people to get into our professions. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment below what you think, and if there is something that you do also that really helps you avoid that burnout and really helps you own your shift, please let us know, and please subscribe. More videos every week.